Hey, back here with Tom Abbott, Iron Eagle Tactical, KB from What's Burnin' on Lake TV. And, we're enjoying a great series on responsible gun ownership. And why is it a great series? Because we're offering you a lot of alternatives. Now, if we basically talk about what we've talked about, safety, storage, various types of firearms, ammunition, we've talked a little bit about CCW. It's all good, but we really ask you to continue your training, continue your education. You know, what we talk about here isn't the end-all, do-all. It is just kind of introducing you to some things that you need to continue on as far as training. So Tom and I are going to take some time here, kind of sit down a little bit, go over, what happens when somebody breaks in your home. What are some of the things that you need to keep in mind? Can you always shoot someone? Is it a good idea to consider a number of other things, like some of the laws and legislation that's in place already? Castle Doctrine, Stand Your Ground, all of these things, because they play an intricate role in what it is that you may be faced with, how you react, and the outcome of that particular situation. Because even though someone's in your home or maybe on your property, doesn't necessarily always mean that you can shoot them. And that's something that you have to consider, and what you'll learn more about with your conceal and carry training.
Right, and thank you, KB. The training portion of it is important. We've covered the concealed carry stuff. And again, as I've said, whether you want your concealed carry permit or not, some people are afraid to register with the state or pay the $40 or whatever it is at the county level to get your concealed carry card. The training is invaluable.
Right.
You have to have the training to know what you can do, what you can't do, and especially when it comes to home protection. When you're out and about and you've got a weapon on you or a gun on you, you're responsible for that. You're responsible for all of the damage that happens beyond whatever it is that you're going to shoot
Right.
at. You have the ability to protect yourself. You never give up that right to protect yourself. But it varies whenever someone enters your home, or as Missouri would refer to it as the Castle Doctrine. And there is a difference between the Castle Doctrine and Stand Your Ground. Missouri didn't become a Stand Your Ground state until I think 2017, 2018, but we've always been a Castle Doctrine state for the most part in modern times. And they consider the castle as your home, your RV, your boat, your car, anything that you have the reasonable expectation of safety, privacy, even to a certain extent, tents.
Mm-hmm.
Anywhere you lay your head, or they say you have a reasonable expectation of safety and privacy, is covered under the Castle Doctrine. So basically what that means, if someone enters your home uninvited and is a threat to you, legally, technically, you have the ability and you're within your rights to shoot them. I'm not an advocate of that. You never want to shoot anybody that you don't have to, if your life's not threatened, because there's been situations where people will break into some people's house, they're drunk, and they fall asleep on the couch. You come home at 2 o'clock in the morning. Just because the guy's laying on your couch doesn't mean you can go get your gun and shoot it.
Right.
Or your daughter's boyfriend sneaking in the back window. You don't necessarily want to shoot him either. You don't want him there at 2 o'clock in the morning, but you don't want to shoot him, even though if you're legally allowed to.
We'll save that for the cleaning portion of the firearm of the firearm series.
We joke about it, or we laugh about it, but the idea of if you shoot them on the front yard, shoot them on the front porch, drag them inside,
Mm-hmm.
you don't want to do that either.
Right.
That's tampering with evidence, and you always want to be honest and upfront with law enforcement. You don't want to say anything more than you absolutely have to, because literally under those stressful situations, you're not going to remember distances, you're not going to remember numbers, you're not going to remember colors. It's all a fog.
Mm-hmm.
And so you don't want to say, well, I shot the guy 5 times, or I shot 5 times. And when they go look at your gun, you shot 8 times. All right, well, then you're a liar. And a prosecuting attorney is going to look at it that
Mm-hmm.
way, So we want to avoid going to court. We want to avoid going to jail. But we do want to cover a little bit about the Castle Doctrine and the Stand Your Ground laws. The Castle Doctrine, again, has to do with your house, your domicile. It's been used in situations where one of the things that we talk about, or it's been in the news in several years past, especially with the riots in Ferguson and some of the riots that have been going on, is protesters in the road, or they're surrounding your vehicle, and what do I do? The legal stance on that, as long as you're inside your vehicle and they don't have access to you, you can't shoot them. If they break your window, all bets are off. Or if they've got a gun aimed at you, all bets are off. That's kind of the defining line. As long as you're protected by that window, or they haven't opened your door, they don't have the ability to hurt you. They can yell at you, scream at you, spit at you, call you all kinds of names, but they don't have the ability to cause bodily injury or bodily harm to you. Once they break that window, then all bets are up, and you have the ability to protect yourself at that point. Carjackings, you really can't use your gun to protect property. If they're ransacking your car, but they're not threatening you, that's not a situation where you can shoot them. If they yank you out of your car, they're not armed, and they take off in the opposite direction of your car, you can't shoot at your own car. I mean, people want to. Trust me, I've been in these situations. You want to, but you have to stop yourself. You can't just shoot at somebody because they stole your car.
Sounds to me like you really have to have your emotions in check.
You do.
And again, what we've talked about constantly, through the education, through the safety, through the training, you will learn to prepare yourself for certain situations. Hopefully you're never in that situation, but if you are, you'll have a better understanding of what to do.
I've been in classes and people ask me, I've got trespassers that continuously cross my property, or drug tweakers or meth heads or whatever, and they're constantly crossing my property. Can I shoot them? No, you cannot. They're not a threat to your life or your limb or your family.
Two things there. Number one, you don't want to shoot them. And number two, you don't want to brandish a firearm, show it to them, threaten them with it, because all that's going to do is cause a situation that more than likely could be avoided.
No warning shots. Can't fire warning shots. That's another thing that I get. Well, I'm just going to shoot over their head. I'm not shooting at them. I don't care. You fired a firearm in the direction of another human being, you're the one that's going to go to jail.
So we talked a little bit about the castle doctrine and any place where you essentially lay your head. So let's talk a little bit more about stand your ground, because they're very different when it comes right down to it.
They are. As I mentioned, Missouri's only been a castle doctrine state for the last 4 or 5 years, and we heard a lot about the stand your ground law from the case in Florida, where somebody got shot, died, and they used the stand your ground defense to make it a self-defense case. And it was. There's a lot of legalities in that particular case that, could be argued. But basically, from Missouri's perspective on stand your ground, is states that do not have a stand your ground law, you have the duty to retreat. Say we're in a confrontation, and I'm armed and you're not. But there's a physical size difference between the two of us. Or in a situation where it's 3-on-1, or it's given some leeway of male versus female from a strength and size perspective. A non-stand your ground state, you would have to try to retreat. You would have to try to run away. Even in your own home that doesn't have a castle doctrine or a stand your ground law, you're required to, and I'm not going to tell you what those states are, but you could probably guess where some of those states are. You have the requirement to retreat inside your own house to a safe place, call 911, and as a last resort, hiding in your closet, protecting your kids, only then are you allowed to shoot someone that's in your house. So Missouri, as going the other direction, even out on the sidewalk in a confrontation, you don't have to retreat. You can stand your ground to protect yourself. Now, you can't be the aggressor. You can't, and in some cases, you could be the instigator. Like we could get into a tussle, a hand-to-hand combination, but the first time you pull out a knife and I pull out a gun, that changes the situation, So things progress as they go along. So the stand your ground is, if you've got a knife and I've got a gun, I don't have to retreat. If you pull a knife and in a non-stand your ground state, I need to try to get away from you as much as possible. So Missouri has, we're on the forefront of Second Amendment protection. We have the Second Amendment Preservation Act. We have the Stand Your Ground laws. We have the Castle Doctrines. The state of Missouri gives the residents of Missouri all of the ability to make their own decisions, to stand your ground, to protect yourself and your family and others. That can, if you see somebody that's trying to kill somebody else, you have the ability to stop that as well. You just can't do it to protect property. Arson becomes an issue. Arson in the case of only an occupied dwelling. If somebody's burning down your garage with your $100,000 '69 Camaro in it, you can't shoot them. You want to. Yeah. Trust me, you would want to. But if you know grandma lives above the garage and grandma's home and that car and that perpetrator is setting fire to the garage, that changes it. Then you have the ability to defend grandma's life at that point. So those are things that you learn, the legalities that you learn in a concealed carry class or a Missouri gun laws class, that whether you go get the concealed carry permit or not, I just urge people to go get the training so you know what you can do and what you can't do.
That's right. And more than likely, if something does happen and the police show up, which they more than likely will, does everybody get handcuffed? How do they handle that situation?
In a situation like in our training classes, we talk about always be the first one to call for law enforcement or not call 911, because you're either a witness, a victim, or a suspect, depending on what order you make the call in.
Right.
Somebody may be harassing you. Somebody may have pointed a gun at you, and you pull your gun and shoot them. They're not dead. They call 911 and report that you shot them. All right. So all of a sudden, you didn't call. He called. They called. So you're either a witness, a victim, or the perpetrator. So always call 911 and let them know what happened. Again, don't give a lot of specific details. Just like there's been a shooting. I'm wearing this. I do have a weapon on me, and they'll tell you what to do. Whenever law enforcement rolls up, they'll tell you, drop the gun, hands up, down on the ground, comply with all of that stuff until they figure it out, because they don't know. They weren't there. So they'll get eyewitness testimony. So really follow what they have to say. Don't argue. But don't give a lot of details, because your lawyer will tell you not to give details. And they'll most likely, if you shot somebody, you're going to get handcuffed until they figure it out. And
you're probably going to end up going to court for one reason or another. There's a good possibility there. So yeah, you want to kind of minimize the details. And you even said once someone fires the firearm at someone that they consider to be a threat, you lose track of a lot of the things that are going on around you, colors, numbers, you name it.
Sure, because then that person's calling 911 and saying, hey, some idiot's on their back porch shooting at me, and my cat ran across here. I'm just going after my cat. You don't know the situation.
You sure don't. And well, again, that just reiterates the need for us to continue to urge folks to educate and train, go through the motions, go through the process, have a plan in place. My goodness, have a plan in place. And all of these training materials, you can utilize those, find the right holster, everything you need to do, but do it in advance and don't wait until the situation arises and then you have to react. Tom Abbott, KB, we're here with Iron Eagle Tactical in the gun shop with What's Burning on Lake TV.